We start this video with a debate. Lore says that she has dark glasses and I have clear glasses. Lore is light, I am dark.
It's true.
What do you think? There's the answer. We solve it one by one. We're here. We're still here with the group, and we're at one. We're on the edge of the Sea of Galilee. And we're in a place known as Mensa Christi in Latin, Shohana Adon in Hebrew, the table of the Lord. Why? Because it is believed that this is the place where Jesus, after having risen, the Bible tells us that he appears countless times. We have 3 recorded, at least in the scriptures, that apparently after he had risen, and this was one of the key places where he came. And why do I say key? The full story is in John 21, right? But because this is where he comes after having last seen Pedro denying him. And then, face to face, they looked at each other.
Jerusalem.
And then he came here, which was before he died, before they had given it to him.
They saw each other there?
They saw each other there for the last time. The Bible doesn't mention Peter at the cross or at its foot, so we don't see him there. It says that she is a mother, there is your son, son of your mother, and some disciples. But it never mentions Pedro. What the Bible does tell us is that Pedro wept bitterly. And what was the last thing said about Pedro up to that moment? And then Pedro appears again on the scene, now. That's when he appears, where the Lord comes to ask him 3 times, Pedro, do you love me? And yes, Lord. Pedro, do you love me? Yes, Lord. Pedro, do you love me? Yes, Lord, you know everything. Feed my sheep. That's where the Lord comes to remind Pedro of the calling he had given him 3 years before. I will make you a fisher of men, a fisher of men. And that's what happened that day. About Pedro's denial is that, in some way, Pedro lost hope that Jesus was the Messiah, even though he wept bitterly. I know there are a lot of people who are going to say to me, how come? But the thing is, Pedro wept bitterly. Not only because he denied him, but also because he expected, like many of the disciples and Jews of that time, a liberator, not a leader who would end up being killed. He thought that the Messiah had to come, set things right, and everything else, and still, the Romans were still in control. So Peter was like, I wasted 3 years of my life. He felt like a failure for having denied Jesus as his great leader, but he was still doubting if he was his Messiah. And then he goes back to work again, like, I wasted 3 years, so I go back to my old job again. How many times do we feel the same way, right?
Yes, hopelessness, and we go back to what we know. I mean, we've already tried something new, we think it didn't go well for us, and instead of trying to improve and move forward in that new area, we go back to the old ways. Why? Because it's what we knew how to do, it's where we had that comfort zone, so we stay there again in what we used to do, because, well, it's better to be in something safe and not be in that situation again. That way you can also be in a safe environment without many surprises. You can once again, in this case Pedro, withdraw into yourself and take that time for introspection, right? To see, like you say, did I waste those 3 years? Yes.
Yes.
So kind of withdrawn, so to speak. I mean, that was the time for that.
And the interesting thing about all this, if you want, we can walk while we talk. The interesting thing is that we see a pattern that also happens to Pablo later on, right? Like a second repentance, but a second repentance that's more merciful than the first, because it comes with greater understanding. And this is where Pedro finally brings things to a close. It removes all doubt, because this is where he goes back to fishing and catches a lot of fish. The Bible is very, very specific when it says he caught so many fish. In Hebrew, there in the Hebrew language, the numbers are included. Look, here's the little statue, and back there is the sea. There is Yeshua, like, excuse me?
Right?
There is John chapter 21. Back there is the sea, here is Galilee, part of the group, and right there is a little boat. 1, 2, or 3. I don't know how many little boats. We're actually on the Sabbath, they're playing their music, they're getting ready, it hasn't started yet, Let's move a little closer this way so the noise doesn't get in so much over there. What were you telling us about the number? I was saying that the Bible gives us a specific number of fish, and that's really key. Because there are several things happening around John chapter 21, but it's giving you a number, and it says there were 150, and you can write it in the comments. Okay, tell me the number. I obviously remember it, but I don't want to be talking here by myself, so I want you to write it down. Write it down. How many were there? It's an odd number. And then, in Hebrew, each letter has a numerical value. And then, what was happening there? Remember that Yeshua, remember you all there, that Yeshua always. He spoke to the disciples in the language they understood, and the disciples understood the language that Yeshua spoke to them. As a Jew, from Jew to Jew, they had like a code, like keys. And the problem, remember that I told you that Peter not only doubted the leadership of Yeshua, but also of the Messiah. He didn't doubt the leadership, but rather his Messiah. He knew he was a good leader, but said he wasn't the Messiah.
He was the Messiah.
Why? Because they killed him. He couldn't understand that part where they beat him and he's completely calm, and they spit on him and he's completely calm, and he has to go to his death and he's completely calm. For him, regarding the Jewish people, the Messiah can't be like that. The Messiah should be victorious, great, and powerful. And get rid of all these people who bother us, show authority, and clean everything up, right? That's what Pedro understood, but that didn't happen with Jesus. When he comes here, finally Jesus speaks to him again as he knows how to do, without shouting, without anything strange. Come here, I want to explain to you, like, come, I'll take you by the hand. He sits him down gently. Come, I want to explain something to you. You didn't see it like this, so let me explain. How does he explain it to him? In the same way where he was a professional at fishing. And then he makes him catch 150 and the odd number, I hope you've already written it down for me, of fish. That in the Hebrew language means, in numerology, it means I am God, Ani Elohim. I am God. When he starts counting, he gets right to the last number, and I think Peter is picturing it in his mind. He's saying, let it not be, let it not be, let it not be. Is there one more? Is there one more? Count again. Because he's telling me I am God, he lifts his head, looks toward the shore, and sees Jesus. Resurrected. That's when he tears his garment, jumps into the water, and realizes that it truly was Jesus.
It all came full circle for him.
Completely. And then something was still missing, complete forgiveness. That's why from the very beginning he told her, I love you. Or he wasn't coming anymore. He already knew and had been saying it, but he needed to understand that God was setting him free.
Peter already knew from the very first one that he had been set free.
But he needed to deeply understand that God was setting him free. That's why at the end he tells him, feed my sheep. And from here, a completely different Peter emerges.
It's so interesting. Notice how attentive Jesus is at this moment. How attentive Jesus is with all of us. Just as Peter denied him 3 times. Jesus took the time so that he could also process it. And 3 times he asked him?
Yes.
And Peter had the opportunity to, so to speak, confess, to accept that forgiveness 3 times. That is really, if before he was falling into a trauma because of what had happened, so to speak in modern language, because of the denial, now that emptiness that was starting to form inside his heart, Jesus, with these 3 times that he asks him, removes it, right? And really he receives not only forgiveness, but also joy again. Hope is restored to him again.
Yes.
So, in order to. Because if not, without that, Pedro would never have been able to start the journey.
Burden, doubt.
Then he can't start the journey that was ahead of him.
The one who knows what has been forgiven understands what Pedro necessarily felt at that moment. I mean, when you feel, all right, I've already been forgiven, you feel relieved. That feeling is incredible, isn't it? You don't always feel it. You only feel it when you're really burdened, really burdened, really burdened, really burdened. And then suddenly you feel that release. That's what Pedro felt that day.
Jesus knew what Peter needed, and that without it, Peter wouldn't be able to take the gospel to the whole world, starting with the Jews first.
Yes.
He wouldn't have been able to finish the work that would come later.
If those people had stayed and Jesus hadn't come that day, they would have thought Jesus was a charlatan who just came to the water's edge and spoke to me. That I was going to be a fisher of men, they killed him, the story ended. Jesus came and put an end to it right there. Hello? It ended, I let go, I never left, and I wasn't a charlatan. 3 years ago, I told you something. And Jesus never forgets what he promised us. Excellent. He will bring it to mind at some point, so we are here going through these places at some point. And well, it's incredible because here the scriptures open up again. In short, they open up again. Let's show a little bit. The group is there in the water. Let's go over there for a bit. I think I can't turn the camera around, but well, let's go over there. And to turn the camera around, I have to stop and start again, okay? So we're saying hi to you here, and everything you'll see after this is just images of what we're seeing around here. Bye.
Bye.